Welcome to the Photonics Leadership Group. I'm John Lincoln, the Chief Executive. This is an update on the size and scale of the UK Photonics landscape from data we issued in 2023. So back when we last issued data in 2020, the UK Photonics was a £14.5 billion industry employing just over 76,000 people. We've now updated those figures, and UK Photonics has grown to a £15.2 billion industry employing over 79,000 people. We had £7.1 billion of gross value add to the UK economy. That's an efficiency of about 89,000, just over 89,000 pounds of gross value add per employee, one of the highest efficiencies of any UK manufacturing sector. And we've continued to grow. And that's important because this data covers the years from 2020 to 2022, obviously the COVID years. It's mostly pre-inflation, mostly pre-energy price rises. And it's important that we've managed to grow through what are relatively tough times. All of the companies we include in our assessment of the size of the industry, all 1,200, are listed on the directory. You're welcome to view that at photonicsuk.org. So compared to many other sectors, we continue to grow. And if you look at the data on the left, which is from the Office of National Statistics, you'll see over the same time period, many other sectors have declined. Motor vehicles has declined, even pharmaceutical manufacturing has declined in terms of its turnover, if not its employment. So Photonics now employs as many people as aerospace or motor manufacturing in the UK, over twice the number of people involved in pharmaceutical production, steel or chemical manufacturing. And our revenues now approach those from the aerospace industries and the plastics and pharmaceutical industries. The number of photonics firms is also much larger in many of these other high-profile industries, more than twice the number that are employed in aerospace or petroleum industries in the UK. So our growth over the last 2 years, as I said, 7% in sales. Our profit growth, though, is up 9%. And that's in part because employment growth has been more steady at 3%, and our benefits per employee have been relatively modest in their growth. And that's meant gross value add per employee has also grown at a very substantial, almost 7% over that time period. And this is like-for-like growth. We are only looking at companies that were in the database 2 years ago and remain in the database today. If you look at long-term growth, the industry continues to grow at a compound annual growth rate of just over 4%. That's 4 times faster than general UK manufacturing. And if we continued that trend, we would become a £17 billion industry by 2024, well on our way to our long-term vision of becoming a £50 billion industry by 2035. Indeed, if you survey industry, as we do, they are much more optimistic. 3/4 of the industry say they will grow by more than 5% in the coming 2 years, and 40% say they will grow by more than 10%. So Photonics is an industry with very substantial growth rates as we look forward. And that is driven by being active in many market sectors. If you look at our own internal classifications, you'll see many companies involved in industrial manufacturing, in the supply chain, in health and life sciences. If you survey people, they say they're active in even more sectors. In fact, by survey, most companies will say they are active in at least 5 sectors, ranging from aerospace and defense to the energy transition to quantum technologies. And it's that diversity that gives us ongoing growth, because of course, when one sector may have leaner years, other sectors have optimistic and strong growth, and the industry is enabled to align itself to where the trends are and where the greatest opportunities are. Regionally, there are 8 regions with more than £1 billion worth of photonics output, employing more than 4,500 people, and indeed the distribution of output or employment is almost identical and has remained unchanged over the last 2 years. If you look at our R&D intensity and you ask companies, over half of photonics companies invest more than 10% of their turnover into R&D. That's R&D of all types. 4 out of 5 companies invest more than 2.5% of their turnover into R&D. That makes us a very research and development intensive industry and underpins that long-term growth rate. And that investment has not changed and is not forecast to change going forward. And if you ask industry where that investment goes, the majority of photonics companies say over half of it goes into photonics innovation. And that's underpinned by a very strong research base. There are over 40 universities, 18 RTOs in the UK, with globally leading photonics capability. And it's a research base that's extremely well connected to industry. 10% of academics groups say they receive more than 50 million in industrial funding over 2 years, 40% more than $1 million. That makes them well connected to what the industrial problems are, used to listening in industry and used to solving relevant problems that are then more easily adopted by industry. If you look at the breakdown of the industry, in the bottom left here, you'll see that most of the revenue and employment comes from a small number of large firms. There are a very large number of micro and small firms, but actually the employment mostly comes from larger companies. This is a general statistic, a general macroeconomic statistic that's true of all enabling technology industries. You get an almost identical distribution whether you look at photonics, acoustics, fluid dynamics, or indeed general UK engineering. Where photonics differs, though, is in the number of micro and small and medium-sized companies. The chart on the top left says we have slightly more small and medium companies and fewer micro companies than industries like fluid dynamics or acoustics or indeed general UK engineering. This is interesting as it tends to indicate that you need a larger number of people in order to pull in all of the different types of skills you need photonics to develop and manufacture photonics. Photonics is a heavily export-focused industry. Half of all firms export more than 50% of their output. Indeed, 16% export almost all of their output to destinations around the world. This has always been the case. It shows the great contribution photonics makes to the UK balance of trade, although it does also indicate that there is an opportunity to make more of the enabling photonics we make in the UK and capture more of its value higher up the supply chain. And indeed, as I've shown, photonics is present in all markets, at all tiers. It's highly focused on innovation. It's growing strongly and profitably and remains an extremely productive industry. And we have a 5-point action plan to build on those UK photonics strengths. First, as I've mentioned, is to foster more higher-level systems engineering to make sure the photonics we make is captured higher up the supply chain into more of those big systems that integrate photonics with other enabling technologies and add higher value. Second, photonics industry is growing globally. To support that, we need to make things in greater volumes, which means we need to support more scale-up and automation of manufacturing of photonics in the UK. We also need to support more resilience. When we fund challenge programs, say around autonomous vehicles, we need to make sure that the sensors and photonics components within those are made in the UK and that we spend a small portion of that challenge funding on developing the enabling components so we are not dependent on importing them from elsewhere. We also need to empower our photonics innovators to pursue the applications they see with greatest market pull. We should not be dictating where they have customers, but letting them follow the markets and make the products that the customers are demanding. As we continue to grow and head towards that long-term vision of becoming a £50 billion industry, we need to accelerate the supply of skills and talent into photonics at an increasing pace. This becomes an ever-ongoing challenge. We're extremely good at hiring and recruiting people in the UK at present. All we need to do is to make sure the pipeline of future talent continues to grow. So the Photonics Leadership Group is all about nudging industry, academia, support agencies and government together to make photonics bigger, faster, stronger. You're welcome to contact us at any of the details shown. And we're extremely grateful to our sponsors for enabling us to operate the PLG every year. Thank you.